Page here is Masech Nazir Daf Mem Ches 48. And we are discussing over here. We're going to start from Daf Mem Zayin Omid Beis, approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 lines from the bottom. Ad Kan Loy Pligi. Our discussion is regarding our Mishnah, and our Mishnah discussed if a Nazir and a Kohen Gadol are walking in a desert and they find a dead body. So there's a mitzvah, if they each were walking by themselves, if they find a Jewish dead body, they have to bury it. That's called a mes mitzvah. But let's say you have a Kohen and Gadol and a Nazir walking at the same time. So who should be metamat for this mes mitzvah? In other words, who's more holier, the Kohen Gadol or the Nazir? And it's a Hi, Steve. Okay, just to repeat, we're discussing over here that the Mishnah gave us an idea that we know a Nazir, if he's walking in the desert and he finds a dead body, a Jewish dead body, he has to bury it. That's called a mes mitzvah. And the same idea is by a Kohen Gadol, although they're not allowed to touch dead bodies, but if a Kohen Gadol is walking in a desert and finds a dead body, he has to bury it. So now the question is, the Mishnah discussed the idea if the Kohen Gadol and Nazir are walking at the same time, let's say in that desert, and there's a Jewish dead body there, who should bury the dead body? Who's more holier? Is the Kohen Gadol more holier, and therefore the Nazir should bury the dead body, or is the Nazir more holier, and the Kohen Gadol should bury the dead body? So that's the machlokes in the Mishnah, and we'll get back to that at a different time. But what you do see from over here is that although the Torah told you by each Kohen Gadol, by each of them, by Kohen Gadol and the Nazir, they cannot be metama to a dead body, but there is a disposition that if the body is a bes mitzvah, that nobody else is going to bury this body, it's going to lay there in a bizoyin, in a degrading manner, they should violate their Kohen Gadol, they should violate their Naziris and bury it. Now, what is the source of that? So the Gemara says like this: Ad kan loy pligi. There's no argument. Ella but Kohen Gadol. Let's make it bigger. Ella but Kohen Gadol the Nazir. He ka ozli bahade adodi. When the Kohen Gadol and Nazir are walking side by side, then everybody, that's the machlokes, whether who's less of a holy person, and therefore that less of a holier person should bury the body. The avol chad b'chad l'chudei, but let's say they're walking by themselves, bar itamuye inun, then they are required to be mitama themselves. Now, how do I know that? Mino hani mili. How do I know that if a Kohen Gadol is walking, and he told me a Kohen Gadol is so holy, he's not allowed to attend even his parents' funeral, that if there's a dead body, he should be mitama to this mes mitzvah. What is the source of that? The Tanu Rabbanan, because the rabbis taught.
What about the fact that if the Kohen Gadol touches the mace, he's still a Kohen Gadol, but if the Nazir touches the mace, he's no longer a Nazir.
Well, yeah, but he has to bring a carbon, and then he has to restart his Naziris. He's required to. He's a Nazir, but just now he just lost his count, and he has to recount.
Right.
So that's the machlokes in the Mishnah. But if they're walking by themselves, so the Chumash says, look, the Chumash says, first the Chumash says that a regular kohen, let's say a non-kohen hedyot, it says lenefesh lo yitama b'mo, that a kohen hedyot is not allowed to be mitama to anybody that's a stranger. But then the Chumash says, by a kohen hedyot, agitovint. He im l'sheirei hakorev elav li'imay le'ovev v'levnoy levitay le'ochev agitovint yetz ungeheuben.
Yeah.
Okay, by a kohen hedyot, it says that he's allowed to be mitama to 7 kroivim. That you know. But then the Chumash says a kohen gadol, he al kol nafshay smeis lo yavoy. He's not allowed to mitama to any dead body, and this pasuk is implying the way we're going to learn al pi Tosfos that this pasuk is implying that not only is he not allowed to mitama to a stranger, because as a kohen he's not allowed to be mitama to a stranger, but he's also not allowed to be mitama to his own relatives. Means even his own relatives, he's not allowed to mitama himself. And so now the question is, then the Chumash seems to be redundant. He should not be mitama to his father and mother. That's redundant because akol nafshes meis means because he was already a kohen hedyet, he was not allowed to be mitama to strangers. So akol nafshes meis means tell you that he's one step above a kohen hedyet. He can even not be mitama to his parents. And then the Torah says, don't go be mitama to your parents. It's redundant. So we're going to darshan that to his parents he's not allowed to be mitama. But if he finds a mace mitzvah, if he finds a dead body and nobody's there to bury it, he should be mitama. That's how you read the Gemara. The Gemara says, the Toner Rabbanan, we learned in a Braisa. Kol nafshis meis lo yavoy. The Kohen Gadol is not allowed to be mitama to anybody. Not even b'meh hakasam medaber. What is that pasuk talking about? Iber choikim. If it's talking about somebody he's not related to, of course, kal v'choimer. It's simple. He's not allowed to be mitama to somebody he's not related to. If a kohen hedyet can't be mitama, ma kohen hedyet should mitama l'kroive ain't mitama l'rechoikim. A kohen hedyet which could be mitama to his relatives is not allowed to be mitama to a stranger. Kohen gadol she'ein mitama l'kroivim. A kohen gadol who is not allowed to be mitama to his relatives. Certainly, you cannot be mitama to somebody who's a non-relative. In other words, the bottom line is, akol nafshay smeis lo yavoy cannot be telling me that he's not allowed to be mitama to a stranger because he always was a kohen hedyet, so he was always somebody who cannot be mitama to a stranger. So when the Chumash tells you that if he becomes a kohen gadol, this kohen hedyet becomes a kohen gadol, when he can't be mitama to anybody, it means even his relatives. So the Torah is telling you he's not allowed to be mitama to his relatives. So then why does the Torah say, let's speak it out, then why does the Torah say you cannot be mitama to your father and your mother? Of course, I understand, that's self-understood. So why does it say ula aviv? We darshan ula aviv hu de'ein mitama. Kohen gadol cannot be mitama to his own father. But if it's a mace mitzvah, nobody else is there to bury it, then we tell the kohen gadol, you go ahead and bury that dead body. So now we explain what la'aviv comes to teach you. Now we go to Daf Mem Ches Omer Aleph, the top of the page. Okay, but what does the imay teach you by a kohen gadol? That's a gzeira shava. That teaches you another idea. Look at the Rebbe, because I would have thought. Listen to this. I would have thought that a kohen gadol not only has to be so careful of tumah, he's not allowed to even touch a mitzayra. Or if he finds his friend who's a zav, he can't touch that person. So, because I would have thought that a mitzayra is like, if anybody's a leaper, so we consider him, because he's living outside the city, he must be like a mace. So maybe just like a kohen gadol cannot touch any mace, he's not even touch a live person who's a mitzayra. I would have thought that way. But there's a gzeira shava, imay. We're going to learn by a nazir. It actually says, let's go by a nazir. The Torah tells you by a nazir, loy yitama. He's also like a kohen gadol, right? He's not allowed to tama to his relatives. And it Torah specifically says this word, bim moisam, when they're dead. Only dead bodies, a nazir is not allowed to be mitama. But a nazir is allowed to touch a mitzayra. So now we have a gzeira shava. That just like a nazir, it says the word imay by a nazir, and a nazir is permitted. He's only not allowed to touch a dead body, but he's permitted to be mitama to mitzayra. So we're going to have a gzeira shava that also a kohen gadol. The extra word imay teaches you that a kohen gadol also is only usher on touching dead bodies, but he's permitted to mitama. He's permitted to touch a mitzayra. That's what the imay teaches you. The gzeira shava, look at the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, God by the nazir, it says the word b'moisam. He's not allowed to touch dead people. He's not allowed to touch somebody who's dead. He's allowed to touch somebody who has a nega, means he's a mitzora, uliziva, or somebody who's a ziva. So now that idea was only said by a nazir. I only know that idea that by a nazir. The kohen gadol menayin. How do you know a kohen gadol is only usher on a dead body? How do you know he's not usher to touch a mitzayra? Omart lo yoima. I'll tell you, because there's an extra pasuk. Lo yoima imay. The Kohen Gadol, the Chumash shouldn't say that a Kohen Gadol cannot be metama to his mother. She'ein Talmud loima sharei kal v'choimahu. It's an obvious kal v'choima. He's not allowed to be metama to his mother. Uma im b'mokom shekohen gadol mitami la'achiv ma'achiv. Really, the Chumash doesn't even have to say. The Gemara just goes to a lumdis over here. How do you know a Kohen Gadol cannot be metama to his mother? The simple answer is because it says al kol nafsher shmeis lo yavoy, and we just said that kol nafsher shmeis lo yavoy means even if they're related to him, a Kohen Gadol cannot be metama. But the Gemara just uses even logically he can't be metama to his mother because we're going to have a kal v'choima. Ma im b'mokom shekoyin hedyet metama la'achiv. We say a koyin hedyet could metama himself to his brother from his father. If let's say a koyin hedyet has a half brother, they're only related by the father. Then we say the koyin hedyet could be metama to his brother. But ein koyin gadol metama la'aviv. We know for a fact from the pasuk al kol nafshes meis lo yavoy that a koyin gadol cannot be metama to his own father, right? So a kohen gadol is more stricter than a kohen hedyet. Makom she'ein kohen hedyet mitami la'achiv mi'imoy. In a situation, even a kohen hedyet cannot be metama to his brother from his mother. That's an important point. That what the Gemara is saying over here is that a kohen hedyet, although he's permitted to be metama to his brother, but only if they're related and they share the same father. But if they only share the same mother, then he cannot attend the funeral. He cannot be metama himself to that brother, because the fact that they're related by their mother is not really family. So ein din, we're going to say certainly she'en kohen gadol metama l'imoy, that a kohen gadol should not be able to be metama his mother because we see that the mother's side is not really family and not so as related when it comes to kohen gadol stuff. So therefore, basically, what the Gemara just got through saying in a long lumdish way, just to teach you an idea, but the nuts and bolts of it is that the word imoy by a kohen gadol is extra. This word imoy that tells you a kohen gadol should not be metama to his mother is extra, because certainly he cannot be metama. We know from akol nafshes meis lo yavoy, and even from logically, we know a kohen gadol cannot be metama to his mother. She's any relative. So then, why does it say imay by his mother? So ma im zechisa ma'adin, if you can figure this out from a kal v'choima, ma tamad loime imay b'kohen gadol. Why does the Torah tell you imay by a kohen gadol? Mufna, it's extra, an extra word. Lahakish v'lodin hemen gzeir shava, to make a gzeir shava and to compare it and juxtapose it to a nazir. Nema imay ben nazir. It says the word imay by a nazir. And it says the word imay by a kohen gadol. Ma imay, just like the mother by a kohen gadol, omay ben nazir, we say b'moisam eino metama, that a nazir cannot be metama to a dead body. Aval metama hu lenigam uzivasim. He's allowed to touch a mitzayra, or he's allowed to touch his friend who's a zav. That's the din by a nazir. So therefore, af imay. So the word imay that it says by a kohen gadol, omay by a kohen gadol, is teaching the same idea. B'moisam eino metama. He's not allowed to touch dead bodies, but he's allowed to touch a mitzayra or a zav. So now let's go back to the psukim by a kohen gadol. A kohen gadol, al kol nafsher shmeis lo yavoy. We already established that means he's not allowed to go be metama to any relative, no matter who he's related to. He cannot bury the body. He cannot even attend the funeral. He has to stay outside. But then the Chumash goes on and says extra words. He should not be metama to his father and mother. Why does the Chumash say such extra words? I know it from from the beginning of the pasuk. That teaches you, la'aviv teaches you that what? To only his father he's not allowed to be metama. But let's say he finds a dead body and nobody's there to bury it. He finds the dead body in the desert. It's a Jewish dead body. We tell the kohen gadol that you are permitted to be metama, and you should be metama. Don't leave the dead body in a degrading state. And what does the imay teach you? That imay teaches you that you compare it to nazir. That just like a nazir is permitted to touch a mitzayra, a human mitzayra.
Is it a dead body or only
No,
a
mitzayra is
a Jewish dead body? No, is it a dead body or a Jewish dead body?
I thought it's that's a good question.
Because you just said dead body. What if he doesn't know if the person's Jewish or not? Is he still required to bury it?
So I always thought, that's a good question. I haven't given it some deep thought, but I always thought it's a Jewish dead body that we tell the Kohen Gadol, oh, you have to bury it. That's called Mace Mitzvah. But would you say that even by a Goyish dead body, that's a
Right. I mean, what if you can't tell? You should, if it's near a Jewish, whole idea is it's probably near a Jewish town, right? So if there's possibility that the body is Jewish and he
maybe
has no idea, I'm assuming he has to bury it, no?
who says that even a guy, he's not required to bury it. Maybe
Right. Is the tumah the same with a Goy and a Jew?
the only difference is a Jewish body. Even if you don't touch it, if you're in the same room as a guy as a Jewish body, you become tamei. A guy, you have to actually touch the body.
But if you touch a Jewish body and touch a Goyish body,
They're both
it's
the
same tumah.
Same tumah.
Right. So the chances are he has to bury it anyway.
He has to bury it anyway, even a guy.
That's what I'm thinking. Because
Okay.
you read it as body, not Jew.
No, but what I'm trying to say is no, that the Kohen Gadol is only also to touch dead bodies, but he's permitted to touch a live mitzvah. If a Jewish guy has a leprosy and he has to stay outside the camp, outside the city,
was not allowed to touch.
I would have thought that a Kohen Gadol should not touch a mitzvah.
No.
Just like he could not allowed to touch a dead body. He's not allowed to touch a mace. You're not allowed to touch a mitzvah. That's why Li'imai teaches you that you compare it to Nazir. And just by Nazir, we say b'moisam, only dead bodies. He's a Nazir not allowed to touch. He's a pasuk by Nazir. A dead body is not allowed to touch, but a Nazir is allowed to touch a mitzvah. So also a Kohen Gadol, he's not allowed to touch a dead body, but he's permitted to touch a mitzvah. So now the Gemara got through saying, Ashkechan Kohen Gadol. I just told you, and Steve, we're gonna call it Meis Mitzvah. I just have to get back to you on that. If it's only Jewish,
no
or if it's even a non-Jew. So Ashkechan Kohen Gadol. I know where to look it up. Ashkechan Kohen Gadol. We find that a Kohen Gadol finds a Meis Mitzvah, a dead body that's a mitzvah to bury. So then we'd say the Kohen Gadol violate your Kohen Gadol. But Nazir Manolan, how do you know a Nazir should violate his Nazirus and bury the Meis Mitzvah? The Tanya, because we learned in a Brisa, it says the same idea. What the Gemara is going to say, first the Gemara says, it says by a Nazir, Kol Yemei Hazir Lashem, or as long as you're a Nazir, Al Nafesh Meis Lo Yavoy. Al Nefesh Meis Lo Yavoy. That he shouldn't touch any dead thing, any dead body. So I would have thought, Shemeyani, says the Bryce, I would have thought, Afil Nefesh Behema B'mashma. He should not even go and touch a dead animal. So he's not allowed to walk into Stop and Shop and touch any of the meat on the treif meat, any dead animal. Keinin Shenema, Makin Nefesh Behema, and Behema also has a nefesh. So when the Torah uses the word nefesh by a Nazir, maybe the Torah said he's not allowed to touch a dead animal. Talmud Loima, the Torah stresses on nefesh mace. It says two words, nefesh mace lo yavoy, and only humans are called nefesh mace, but not animals. But nefesh odam akasim davar. So it's talking about a human, but not an animal. So a Nazir is not allowed to touch a human that's dead. Of course, he's allowed to touch an animal that's dead. Rabbi Shmuel, he doesn't say, he says, Ein tzarach. I don't need you to teach me that idea from this pasuk. I know it says, Harehu Oimer, the pasuk says, Al nefesh meis lo yova, you cannot come into the same room where there's a nefesh meis. So it must be a human. Benefoshes hamatamis bebia kasam davar. This refers to a nefesh that could be metama when you walk into the room. Well, that's a Jewish dead body that's in the room. So that's what the Chumash is talking about, that a Nazir is not allowed to walk into a room where there's a Jewish dead body there. This would imply, by the way, that Rabbi Shmuel is trying to say that a Nazir could touch a Goyish dead body, but I'm not sure. It's not clear. Now, so therefore, the Torah says he's not allowed to touch any dead body. So then, the Torah tells you, the Torah says that he's not allowed to touch his father and mother, but he's metamahu l'meis mitzvah. The Torah goes ahead and says he's that al aviv l'imay l'achav l'chayis l'yitame. So why does the Torah tell you l'aviv l'imay? And really, the Gemara is going to learn it from l'achiv. Why does the Torah tell you that a Nazir is not allowed to touch his brother that's dead? It says already he's not allowed to touch any dead body, including relatives. So why does it say la'achiv? It means only your brother you're not allowed to mitama to. But if it's a meis mitzvah, if nobody's there to bury it, then the Nazir should be mitama it. Now, wait a second. I could have figured out that a Nazir could be mitama to a meis mitzvah. I would have figured it out by myself. I don't need a pasuk, because I would think that if you told me a kohen gadol is allowed to be mitama to a meis mitzvah, then certainly a Nazir. And who's more holier? The kohen gadol. Isn't the kohen gadol more holier? So ma kohen gadol, I would have figured it out. Ma kohen gadol should kedusha kedushas olam. The kedusha of a kohen gadol lasts forever. Kohen gadol is a lifetime appointment. And we told you, mitame l'meis mitzvah, he could be mitame to a meis mitzvah. Nazir she'ein kedusha kedushas olam. If a Nazir is not forever kedusha dik, ein adin she'mitame l'meis mitzvah. Certainly, he can be mitame to a meis mitzvah. So what the Gemara is in effect asking is, why do I need a pasuk by a Nazir to tell me you could be mitame to a meis mitzvah? If a kohen gadol could be mitame to a meis mitzvah, certainly a Nazir could be mitame to a meis mitzvah. So the Gemara says,
is there ever a case where a meis mitzvah can't be buried, or somebody can come across it, and there's any case where someone would say, I'm not allowed to bury it?
Well, the Gemara is going to say later, maybe if, let's say, a guy is a Nazir and a kohen gadol at the same time, so he has maybe he's so holy that we're going to say even a meis mitzvah he's not allowed to.
Well, if you could do it as a kohen gadol and you could do it as a Nazir,
but maybe if you combine
right. You think it makes it even more than the sum of the parts,
right? So then maybe you're super holy. Well, the Gemara is going to say that they could. So right. So the truth is, in reality, there's no such a thing of a meis mitzvah that
can't be buried.
Right. That cannot be buried.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay.
Isn't that the Good Samaritan? I was going to look. Isn't that where?
You mean in New York and stuff?
The Good Samaritan. The statement came from the originated because the kohen wasn't going to bury them, and then came this goy and buries it. Something like that. It had to do with a meis mitzvah. I have to look that up where that source comes from. Anyway, the Gemara is just questioning, what do you need a separate pasuk by a Nazir? If a kohen gadol can bury meis mitzvah, certainly a Nazir. So the Gemara answers, Lloyd, not true. A kohen gadol that violates his kihuna gedola, he doesn't have to bring a carbon if he just matama himself. He just goes to the mikveh after a sprinkling of the paraduma waters, and then he's back to being a kohen gadol. But would you say a Nazir should violate his naziris? Maybe carbon al tumase, because he has to bring a carbon on his tumah. Hoyel maybe carbon al tumase. So now that you're requiring him to bring a carbon on his tumah, lo yitamel meis mitzvah. He should not be mitama to a meis mitzvah. So I would think that he should not be, because a kohen gadol, a Nazir, it's a whole process for him to be mitama to somebody, because now he has to bring three karbanos. So I would think even if it's a meis mitzvah, he should not be mitama to a meis mitzvah. Talmud Bavli, that's why the Chumash tells you by a Nazir that he should not be mitama to his father and mother, but he should be mitama to a meis mitzvah. Wait a second. Maybe I'll tell you that the Chumash is telling you that the Torah is telling you that he's not allowed to be mitama to his father and mother. But maybe the Chumash is implying that a Nazir could be mitama to a strange person. Maybe a Nazir could attend somebody else's funeral. Only his father's funeral, where he's going to look sad and upset. The Nazir, the Torah tells you, don't be mitama to your parents. It's all one statement, because you're going to look sad. But if it's somebody you don't know, maybe you could be mitama. Maybe the Nazir could attend somebody else's funeral. That you can't say. Amrit kal v'choyma. That certainly you can't say that. Ma koyin hedyet shemitama lekroivim ein mitama l'sharmesim. A koyin hedyet, there the Chumash says, could be mitama to his own relatives, cannot be mitama to strangers. Nazir she'ein mitama lekroivim. If a Nazir, the Chumash says, cannot be mitama to his own relatives, ein edin shlo yitama sharmesim. That's for sure. He cannot be mitama to strangers. So again, that's for sure. So la'aviv le'imay le'itama, he's not mitama to his father and mother. So hama tamad lo'ima Why does the Chumash say you're not allowed to be metama to your father and mother? We go to Amud Beis, Memches Amud Beis. So right now, the Gemara seems, the Brisa seems to go in this direction, that the extra words teach you, the Aviv teach you that he could be metama to a meis mitzvah. That's what la'aviv limay. Now the Gemara says, it's not a question. The Gemara says, Ad shelo yoma yesh li b'din. I could figure this out on my own. That again, the Gemara is just asking that I could figure out that a nazir could be metama to a meis mitzvah without an extra word la'aviv li'imay. Why? Because I'll say like this: Ne'emru klolis b'kayin gadol, v'ne'emru klolis b'nazir. It says a general rule by a kayin gadol, he cannot touch a dead body. And it says a general rule by a nazir, he cannot touch dead bodies. Ma klolis hamuris b'kayin gadol, just like it says by a kayin gadol, it says la'aviv eini metama v'metama l'meis mitzvah, that a father, he cannot be metama, but he could be metama to a meis mitzvah. Af klolis hamuris b'nazir. So then the klolos that are written by a nazir, la'aviv eini metama. So also he's teaching you la'aviv eini metama. So therefore, what is the word extra word la'aviv teaching you? La'aviv eini metama, al metama l'meis mitzvah. So you cannot be metama to a meis mitzvah. So in other words, what the Gemara is gonna, the Gemara is trying to say, the Gemara is trying to establish, how do you know that la'aviv is extra? Maybe the Chumash needs to tell you that a nazir cannot attend his father's funeral. How do you know it's extra to teach you could be metama to a meis mitzvah? I need it to teach you that he cannot be metama to his father. So the Gemara wants to say, well, you compare it to a kain gadol. Just like a kain gadol cannot be metama to his father, a nazir can't even be metama to his father. So then, why does the Torah tell you la'aviv? To teach you that only his father he cannot be metama, but he could be metama to a meis mitzvah. But then I could say like this, maybe a nazir is like a kohen hedyot. Klach derech zu. Nemra kolos b'kohen hedyot, and nemra kolos b'nazir. I could say it the opposite. I could say it another way. There's general rules by a kohen hedyot that he can attend the funeral, and it says a general rule by a nazir that he can't attend the funeral. Ma kolos amus b'kohen hedyot, just like a kohen hedyot could be mitamala aviv. I would think I would think a nazir could also be metama to his father. Talmud so the Chumash has to say that he cannot be metama to his own relative. I need la'aviv to teach me that he cannot be metama to his own relative. So again, what the Gemara Brisa is really holding right now is that I don't have a source that a nazir could be metama to a meis mitzvah. There's no extra word in the pasuk because al nefesh meis lo yavai teaches you that he cannot be metama to a stranger. La'aviv teaches me he cannot be metama to his own father. So what's extra in the pasuk? So that's what the Gemara says. You're right. Ella, here's the bottom line, and here's the source by nazir. The Chumash teaches you la'aviv. The first thing the Chumash teaches you by a nazir, it teaches you his father, that he cannot be metama to his own father. But that wouldn't be enough. Once you tell me a nazir cannot attend his father's funeral, that it's automatic. He can't attend his mother's, his brothers, and his sisters. That's obvious. Because if you can't attend your own father, certainly all the other relatives. So why does the Torah says la'achiv? Why does the Torah tell you that he can't be metama to his brother? That's teaching you that teaches you the idea that a nazir could be metama to a meis mitzvah. What does le'imai teach you? Le'imai teaches you l'gzeir shava the Rebbe. The word le'imai by a nazir teaches you the gzeir shava of Rebbe, which means that just like nazir could be touch a mitzvah, so also we say that a kain gadol could also touch a mitzvah. And one more point. V'la choisai. What is la choisai teaching me? What is the sister teaching me? It says la choisai by nazir, right? He cannot attend. Here's this word right over here on the screen. La choisai. That's extra. If you tell me he can't be metama to his father, what is la choisai teaching you? Look at the Tanya. The Tanya we learned in a brisa. La choisai ma tamad loyve. What is la choisai teaching you? So lachos is totally extra by a nazir, and it's teaching you an idea that has nothing to do with Naziris. Listen to this. A guy, a regular Jew, he's coming to Shecht his carbon Pesach, or give his son a Mila, and he's about to do it, and then he heard that that his father or mother died, right? So there's a mitzvah to attend your father's funeral, or your mother's funeral, or your brother's funeral. That's a mitzvah to say. Maybe I would think that he should attend his mother's funeral or his father's funeral and don't check the carbon Pesach, or don't give a bris to your son. So I might think that that's the case because that's a good mitzvah. Omarta lo yatama. I will tell you, no, don't be mitama. Why? Because by you giving up, not makra of a carbon Pesach, you're giving up a very strong assay. The mitzvah says say that if you don't bring a carbon Pesach, you chayiv kares. Or there's a mitzvah of Mila that if a person doesn't have a bris Mila, he gets kares. So the Mila mitzvah and the Pesach mitzvah is a bigger mitzvah to attend the funeral of your father, and therefore we tell you don't be mitama to your father and mother. Now I would have thought, okay, so we see the strong. So if a guy is doing a mitzvah of carbon Pesach and he's on his way to Mala his own son, we tell him do the mitzvah of Pesach, do the mitzvah of Mila. So I would have thought, says the Gemara, Yochol lo yitam lames mitzvah. I would have thought that you should not be mitama to a mes mitzvah. You're on your way to do this great mitzvah of Pesach and Mila. Don't be mitama to a mes mitzvah. Talmud loyme. That's why the Torah writes an extra word by achoyse by nazir to teaching you la achoyse hu de'ena mitama hala mes mitzvah mitama. That even for a meis mitzvah, he could be mitama. So even if you're about to perform this super mitzvah, and such a mitzvah that even if you didn't do it, you would get kares. If you find the meis mitzvah, stop doing the mitzvah, don't do the mitzvah, and bury the mitzvah. So like you said, Steve, there's no avera, there's no hold up for anybody. When there's a meis mitzvah, you have to bury it. There's no excuse around it. Okay,
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so there's no excuse around it. And we'll discuss more about this tomorrow, Bez Hashem.